Connecticut 2016 is an interesting place, a place that perhaps was maybe unimaginable 10 years ago. We've dealt with the loss of the General Electric Corporation, talking about huge amounts of state layoffs and budget issues with the state. The Yale endowment is being discussed for taxation purposes. Some rumors flying around that Yale should move out of state. An unthinkable situation, but nonetheless one which we're all right in the middle of. And when we're in the middle of it, we turn to our expert, Professor Bob Swick, who tells us exactly what's happening, because we get so much conflicting information these days. Many people in the media who are being funded by tax dollars don't like to speak out against the government, but we have no such constraints here, and it's always great to have Bob. And Bob, how are you this evening?
I'm good, Tony. Thanks for having me on the show tonight.
As always, and you begin where you want. I mean, right now my head is spinning.
The first thing I want to talk briefly about was the supposed bipartisan agreement that occurred in Hartford today to once again try to stopgap the budget crisis in Hartford. The plan that was passed by both the Democrats and Republicans basically has been able to somehow close the $220 million gap for fiscal 15-16 that the budget deficit that's currently in Hartford. Now, this was done to me with a lot of smoke and mirrors, where money was projected, savings was made, some minor cuts were made in certain departments. The biggest things that did occur was that people in need, basically those who depend on Connecticut for social service programs, especially those disabled, did not suffer any cuts, and money that was being held back for the hospitals to the tune of $140 million was found, and that's going to be paid back to the hospitals, so they will not experience serious cuts. I will point out that all this is done in theory is balance the budget for 15-16, fiscal 15-16. Fiscal 16-17, which starts in July, is already in the hole, anywhere from $900 million to $1 billion, depending on the way you look at it. So you really need to see some long-term structural changes in the state budget if the budget deficit will ever be addressed for fiscal 16 and 17. And this is a big problem that the state legislature is going to be facing over the next few months. I will also point out, too, I'm really not that optimistic about state tax revenues coming in before April 15th. I don't think there's going to be a large sum of money coming into the state treasury for taxes, and I think this is going to further exaggerate the budget deficit for the next fiscal year.
It's a familiar game up there in Hartford where Nancy Wyman was, I don't know if she was, flipping coins or just incompetent or beyond herself, or was a game that she played to mastery, where she would always goose up the revenues that were coming in and saying, oh, this is what'll be here. And whatever she said would be there many times never got there. Right. And then all that really did was just take the hole, dress up the hole,
the problem is,
and push it down.
Me, and we're both pretty versed on economic law, is that they're over-anticipating a lot of revenue coming in year in and year out. They're very optimistic that all this money is going to come into the states through taxation. And when it doesn't, then it becomes a spin game to try to figure out who, A, we can blame, and B, what do we do to cut the deficit? And it's been in every year of Malloy's administration that we've seen these massive shortfalls, coupled with two of the highest tax increases in state history, have really not done a darn thing to address the budget crisis that we continue to have now, going into its seventh year. And it's a major problem. And the other thing I think that was finally addressed exactly. We really have to look at how much unions earn and how much non-union management positions are in the state of Connecticut. We're roughly paying well over 40 cents of every tax dollar just going to salary and benefits for the state budget, and that's not sustainable. I think we would be both, I think if anyone listening to the show tonight would be in agreement that we can't sustain it. It's not sustainable to have to pay this kind of salary and benefits to both union and non-union workers in an effort. It's a political elite that we're servicing. And I will point out one department which is very near to me since I teach in the state community college system is the Board of Regents. I still don't understand what the purpose of it is to see so many high-level paid non-teaching positions in that particular department that has not resolved one issue for education in the state of Connecticut other than continue to raise tuition, which is what they did today again, another 3.5% to 5% depending on where you're going to school. And I'll point out, I teach at Gateway in New Haven, and I give my students a lot of credit for trying to better themselves, try to learn, try to get their education. But Tony, the first 2 nights of class, I come in with binders, I come in with notebook paper, I come in with notebooks, I come in with file folders, because many of my students can't even afford the textbook, let alone afford supplies that they need in the classroom to take the class. And this is irrational to me, especially when you have the head of the Board of Regents is making $332,000 a year in salary, plus benefits, plus an incredible pension.
How can a situation like that cease to exist? I mean, obviously it does. And, you and I have had this discussion through the years of you have your, whatever you want to call them, your independent or satellite state 4-year universities, Southern, Eastern, Central, Western. And I've always said to you, why not leave these schools, leave them, let them have their own identities, their own sports teams, their own character, but consolidate the administration under one umbrella. What the heck difference does it make?
Exactly. And unfortunately, that will never occur because it basically turns into political appointments, both on a community college level, on the state university system level. That we got Joe Smith here, who was in the Senate for how many years? Now he leaves, so we got to get him a job in the state community college system doing something. A high-paid $100,000 plus job, so he can benefit from it. And that's the big problem. I deal with such bureaucracy, both in public education and for the private colleges I teach at, and it's become such a disconnect when you have to chronically tell your students, especially at a community college level, the ones that can at least afford the classes, well, we're gonna raise your tuition another 5% because there's no place we can cut. But the president of, let's say, a Gateway with benefits makes $200,000 a year. Another community college, it's another $200,000 plus. Is the money really justified anymore for what they do? I can't see it. I really can't. And then they call adjuncts like me, I'm overpaid because I'm getting 20% of what a full-time faculty member is making. Because I don't hold office hours, but it's never looked at how much time I actually spend with my students via email, via phone calls, before and after class to try to help them. And again, I really think the Board of Regents just needs to be dissolved in the state, and a heck of a lot of money could be saved for higher education in Connecticut. I really hope, and I have mentioned to 2 state senators so far, that they really need to look into this Board of Regents as just a political tool for the Democrats in Connecticut more than anything else. It's not doing anything to help education.
Well, and whatever you want to call it, the stacking of administrators and administrative agencies in the state of Connecticut, education's not the only place this happens. It happens
again, though, I'm reaching a point where I'm just seeing, I think, many taxpayers in the state of Connecticut are just saying, we're here at the mercy of state government. We're here just to support problem state government for whatever they wish to do with their politically connected people that work for them. And it's the argument is getting tired. It's not economically logical anymore, and especially if you're already $1 billion in the hole for the next fiscal year. Would it say to you that you really need some sort of structural change?
Yeah.
Whatever it may be, even if it's $100 savings here or $1,000 savings there, it will add up in the long run. And I think that's where the frustration grows in Connecticut with taxpayers, and especially businesses in Connecticut, who are saying, well, what are we supporting here? What is actually going on? Nothing is making sense to anybody. And again, as much as this bipartisan deal is being praised tonight, I really can't see it doing anything other than another stopgap for a couple months. And then beginning in May, we're going to see, well, we got another budget deficit. And it's going to be even worse than what we anticipated before. On and on and on.
Well, July 1st, as we know, that's the new fiscal year. And reading before we came on tonight, I was reading the proposed list of cuts. Can you explain some of the proposed cuts and where they're going to come from? Even though more often than not, things don't get cut that should be cut, and things that shouldn't get cut do.
And it doesn't make any sense anymore, because what we're doing is we're hurting the people who need the help the most, but we're allowing that politically elite to continue to do whatever they need to do to support their $100,000 a year salaries, plus the pensions and the medical benefits for the rest of their lives, so on and so forth. And it's not right. It's just not right. And I think, and I'm truly hoping, and I know I sound like a broken record when I talk about this. I talk about it every local election, every state election. I truly hope the voters of Connecticut are fed up enough so that they end the one-party rule in Hartford. Now, we have some sort of balance in both the House and the Senate, whereby we could see, let one of the bodies be controlled by the Republicans, and if we still have to have one of the bodies be controlled by the Democrats, let it be controlled. But let's have some sort of balance there. The Republicans have been shut out of the budget process until tonight, and that's going on 7 years. And it's inherently wrong, especially realizing that the Republicans represent probably close to 40% of the population in the state of Connecticut. So if you have a Republican state senator, let's say, or a Republican state representative, your voice is meaningless in Hartford, because the Democrats control both houses, both the House and the Senate, and they're not allowing any type of dialogue or compromise with the minority party. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I truly hope that the voter wakes up in November and says, we can't have this anymore. We need a change. My Democratic legislator, who's been in office for 30 years, needs to go. I've had enough. I want a change. I want to see a change. And I'll go on a limb. I really believe that the Republicans are going to take back the state Senate in November. I'm optimistic for a couple of reasons, and the biggest reason is in the 18th senatorial district, which Andrew Maynard, who is a Democrat, decided not to run again because he's had physical problems. I really believe that the Republicans are going to pick up the seat, and that will be one of the, I believe, 3 seats they need to regain control of the Senate.
Now, are there any retirements of state senators that you're aware of?
I'm sorry, Tony, say that again?
Are there any retirements of state senators that you're aware of?
The only other state senator that I'm aware of who apparently wants to run it against Blumenthal for Senate is coming out of the 2nd district, and that's in Darien, Danbury. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's Will Duff, who said he's not running again. And 2 Democrats have announced, and a couple of Republicans are interested in that seat. And that's basically all I've heard so far as the House, as far as the Senate. In the House itself, there are several, including here locally in Wallingford, Mary Fritz, who's a longtime Democrat and she was also not in the best health. So that could be possibly a pickup in Wallingford, Cheshire area for the Republicans in the House. And there's a couple other minor seats here and there where we still don't know to a certain degree who's running and who's not running. At the same time, I really believe this summer, when push comes to shove, if the budget deficit is really bad, which I'm anticipating it is, you're going to see a lot more people start to retire and say they've had enough. So there could be some hope in November with regards to the House and the Senate. I'm not overly optimistic with Blumenthal running for Senate again that the Republicans can beat him. But again, hope springs eternal. And if you're optimistic, you can only hope for the best. As far as the House seats, on a national level, I still believe the Republicans are going to have a very difficult time taking any of the 5 seats throughout the state. But we'll see what happens. I think a lot of it will depend upon how angry voters are when they vote in November. And I think on a local level, especially for the House and Senate, they're angry. They're tired of paying high taxes in the state. They're tired of seeing what's going on. And there needs to be some accountability finally in our state government.
What I don't hear a lot about is what I myself have been experiencing when I have people who are my clients, my friends, and ever since the top of this year, I've had 35 or 40% of them come and say, when this event happens in my life, my daughter graduating, my father passing on, who's now in the end stages of life, or some defining life event, my son getting married, I am out of here so quickly. And these are not people, how could I put it? They're not on the state billionaires list, but they contribute a lot to state GNP, to the point where, to me, it's staggering. Between property taxes and local taxes and what they themselves might be spending in a commercial vein. And my concern is that when we see this migration happen, which I think is exacerbated by the GEs of the world saying, we're not going to be here. How many people go with that? Kids don't go to school, houses get vacated and things like that. That frankly has me beyond concerned, Bob.
I agree with you 100%, Tony, and I hear the same issues from a lot of people locally. They say, they tell me the same thing, and in my case, I'm hearing a lot of people say, when my elderly parents go, I'm not going to be hanging around here. I'm out of here. I also am hearing from people who are very fearful of the state inheritance tax that, a lot of people who have a business, it's not uncommon to see business assets be worth $3, $4, $5 million.
Oh, I know.
What gives the state of Connecticut the right to touch that is beyond me. And it's just exaggerating the situation. It's accelerating the moves. I hear more and more people say, I'll take whatever I can get from my house just to get out of here. And it's scary. It really is scary. And unfortunately, I think the Republicans on the state level kind of picked up on it. I believe the Democrats are in just total denial of any of this. And again, when you look at a bill that they want to come out of committee that's going to tax Yale's endowment, I really believe that that's the nail in the coffin in the state of Connecticut. It just shows the lack of economic realism, the economic illiteracy that we're seeing out of the Democratic Party to come up with something like this in their desperation to find more money. It's horrible. It really is. And I do feel sorry for your clients because they're really facing a realistic situation. They don't want to stay here anymore. They can't afford to stay here anymore. And they're the ones that are the backbones of the economy. And that's what's lost in the translation in this budget session.
Well, I see that because there's a lot of, how could I put it, among my peers and competitors, us too, cost cutting, consolidation, a lot of whatever you want to call it. You're playing a lot more defense than you're playing offense. And, it's we don't hear a lot about it. It's kind of like right now we're starting to talk about it in whispers.
Correct. And I think the big problem is you and I as families, we make the hard decisions to cut back. Won't do without. We'll keep the same car for another 2-3 years to save money. But state government knows no limits as far as being frugal or trying to save any money. And that's the big problem. And that's the disconnect that taxpayers are tired of hearing, that there can never be a cut out of state government. There can be never a cut in a union agreement, so on and so forth. And it's a big, big problem. One area I want to touch upon real quick
Sure.
is that the state unions have been able to manipulate their contracts to the point that if any of their union agreements are in conflict with any state laws, the union agreement takes precedence over the state law. When I found out about that, I said to myself, I don't know if there's any hope for the state after seeing that. It scares me to no end.
That's beyond words.
It is. It's truly amazing. It is a state statute, and it scares me to see that. And that's one statute that really needs to be repealed immediately. But it'll never happen so long as the Democrats are in control of both the House and the Senate.
Last thing I'd like to talk to you about, do you think we might see something happening with the governor, like moving on to some position of national significance?
Definitely. I think he's very much hoping that Hillary Clinton will be elected president. He really feels, from what I'm hearing, that he's going to be the Department of Transportation Secretary because he's done such an amazing job for transportation in the state of Connecticut.
Amazing
He's
is right.
desperately trying to negotiate anything he can with any high-level official in Washington that can get him out, because he realizes there is no possible way he will, one, run for re-election and win this time, and B, he is definitely losing any type of popularity within the state. So he's manipulating himself for a high-level Washington position of some sort. Where he ends up, no one knows, but I'm sure he's in serious negotiations right now with anybody that'll listen to him.
Yeah, and what's behind him gives me the chills. That's
Well, I think what it is he realizes the handwriting's on the wall. He knows he has botched up Connecticut beyond repair, and he's just got to spin it to his advantage to get out. Now, you got to remember one real quick thing. He made a lot of money selling his house in Stamford when he became governor. So he's got a good pocket of cash that he can fall back on to make a transition to Washington. So I think he planned everything out quite well with regards to his finances, to say the least. So, because again, he's living on the taxpayers' dime in Hartford at the governor's mansion and doing quite well with his salaries and benefits, to say the least.
It's amazing. Bob, I can't believe it. We're out of time. We're certainly going to have you back on again in the real near future. Where can our friends and fans reach you?
If anybody wants to see me, you can check my blog, swickspeak.com. I'm also available, email bobswick@snet.net.
Terrific. Bob, be well. We'll talk soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that was Professor Bob Swick. And sobering information, but information we all need to hear. And we're going to be coming back with a few retro commercials, and after that, some incredible classic clips. Love having you here. Stick around. Tony D'Angelo here on Coast to Coast. We'll be right back right after this.
Because what I'm putting down